This car exists only because of a quirk of the Indian taxation system, where they give sedans shorter than Nicki Minaj insane tax breaks. But how do you make a shorty sedan? Well, you take something like the Suzuki Swift and you give it a booty worthy of Niky. Underneath the hood is the same 1.2-liter engine that has been under the hood of the Swift since time immemorial. 81 horsepower, 113 Newton meters of torque, 4 cylinders. Attached to an automated gear shift system, it acts just like a manual. So it gives you manual-like fuel economy, up to 26 kilometers a liter on the highway and double digits in the city. See, unlike other automatic transmissions, the AGS is basically a 5-speed manual with a computer-controlled clutch. So with a clutch instead of a big slushy torque converter, it revs freer, it feels lighter, it moves quicker. It's like the difference between jogging in shorts and jogging in a full business suit. It's night and day. Unfortunately, like a manual transmission, your experience, the smoothness of the transmission is dependent on the skill of the driver. And you're not driving. The computer is driving the clutch. So shifts can be laggy, they can be slow, they can be jerky, and it can also sometimes be indecisive. So most of the time you use this car, you'll have it in manual mode and you will be shifting yourself, which isn't bad. It's still easier than using a manual, and if you lift when you shift, it'll be smooth enough. Now this thing being based on the Suzuki Swift drives a lot like the Suzuki Swift. Basically, it's a Swift with a trunk, so it's got that same short wheelbase, that square stance. It turns like a hot hatchback, like a rally rep. It turns quickly, it turns incisively, and it feels like a load of fun to take through a narrow canyon road. From an enthusiast point of view, it's just not as much fun to drive as it would be if it were equipped with proper performance tires and a lower ride height. That's a problem for me, but for most people will appreciate the fact that you can bang against parking curbs without damaging anything underneath the car. They'll appreciate the fact that since this car is so short, you can park it almost anywhere. Although the rear glass is kind of small, it does have backup sensors. Although they are the quietest backup sensors in the world. Aside from the super polite backup sensors, you do get some other niceties. You got front fog lamps, you've got keyless entry, you've got ABS, traction control, you've got two 12-volt ports and one USB port. That's so 2018. Who uses 12-volt ports anymore? But you do get a nice touchscreen. It's a small touchscreen, 7 inches, but it does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay now, not like last year's model. The sound is not so nice. It's only 4 speakers, so don't expect miracles. It's okay for easy listening, but if you know me, I'm not into easy listening. In terms of interior design, the Dzire feels like it is state-of-the-art design from 2012 or so, which isn't to say that it's ugly. It's actually pretty attractive. I love this small, flat-bottom, sporty steering wheel. I love the double binnacle gauges. I love the whole feel of the interior where it wraps around the driver, but it feels like something designed from before the smartphone age. The only concession to modern multimedia is this small 7-inch touchscreen. You do have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and it is pretty snappy and easy to use, but you can tell it wasn't designed with that in mind first. The aircon controls feel sort of retro and classic. I've got lots of space here in front, lots of legroom, nothing is touching my knees, nothing is even coming close to my head. This is an Indian market car after all, and if Indians need anything, they need headroom. Hence the back. This back seat has headroom for days. And you've got lots of elbow room too. Not much leg room. I mean, you've got lots of space for your knees, but you're not going to cross your legs in here, not if you don't want to get the front seat dirty. You do also get rear AC and a proper armrest height armrest with cup holders, which is about all you can ask for in a small car nowadays. Of course, cargo space is not a big draw for a car this small, but 378 liters is not terrible. More than most hatchbacks, not quite as much as even the smallest competitor sedan, but you could still fit one balikbayan box in there if you cut it in half first. Maybe. As for the exterior, there's not much to say that you don't already know by this point. This car is like 6 years old by now. I must say, compared to the tall and narrow competitors this car has, this shorty is sexy. It's short, it's square, it has that hot hatch look, and on these balloon-like Apollo tires with a high stance, it sort of looks like a miniature Lightning McQueen. Maybe it's not as fast as Lightning McQueen, but it is that cute. Now, without Indian tax breaks, the Suzuki Dzire isn't as cheap here as it is in India. It starts at 609,000 and ends up at 819,000 for the GL Plus variant we have here, which has all the bells and whistles plus that automated gear shift transmission. Now, if you don't fancy the AGS system, and I don't blame you for that, you can take 60,000 pesos off that, go for the GL manual transmission, most of the bells and whistles, but a good 5-speed manual transmission, which we think is the sweet spot in this range. Now, as for competition, that's kind of hard to figure. The closest thing I can figure is the Mitsubishi G4, which costs like anywhere from 80 to 100,000 more, spec for spec. So this sits pretty comfortably alone in its class of one. So that's the Suzuki Dzire. To summarize, it's easy to drive, it's fun to drive, it's relatively spacious, good elbow room, good headroom. It's got all the toys you might need: Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, fog lights, remote locking, etc. And last of all, it is very pretty. This shorty is a howdy. On the other hand, it's got limited legroom, it's got limited trunk room, and you could use a little more in terms of the sound system and the remote locking. We do wish that it was speed sensitive. So if you have kids in the car, or if you stop the car, remember you have to lock and unlock it manually when you're going or stopping. But that's about it. Practical-minded buyers will probably balk at spending an extra 60,000 on an automatic, but they will enjoy the fact that this has the running costs and the fuel economy of a manual transmission without the accompanying clutch cramps. And if you're a certain age, you will feel the clutch cramps with a manual transmission, especially in Metro Manila traffic. So this is a car that doesn't tick all the boxes for anyone, but it ticks a lot of them for everyone.